Welcome everyone, Questine here on Serious Gaming with a discussion about rogues for World of Warcraft, the Burning Crusade Classic, and why they will be so terrible for PvE. For PvP, different discussion altogether. Rogues are perfectly fine in PvP, but they are absolutely terrible in PvE. Especially in the early game content, though they do get better with gear and in Tier 6 specifically in Sunwell Plateau. But early on, rogues are absolutely atrocious in raiding. And I can give you X number of reasons why, but first, let's actually look at some numbers. From Sunstrider server, which only recently got Tier 5, and it's one of the more recent servers, we see in Karazhan, in Gruul, at Gruul himself, not counting Malgar, just Gruul, and McFerrin, we see the DPSers. And it becomes perfectly clear who exactly wins. And this continues in Tier 5. Void Reaver even, a boss that isn't particularly favorable towards ranged, hunters still are at the top. A wave of green, an orgy of hunters. Why is that? Why are hunters so dominant? Because hunters aren't just winning against rogues. They're winning against everyone based on these logs. And this is something that would apply regardless of the server you're looking at. Doesn't matter. Hunters end up winning. Even on fights that you might not think they should win, they actually still win depending on the skill of the players involved. But why is that? Why do hunters do so well? Well, part of it is because of a very strong set bonus from their dungeon blue set. Beast Lord on a 4 set gives a hunter 600 armor penetration, which is immensely useful and significantly boosts a hunter's DPS. And they get it from a dungeon set that they can collect in normal. There's no other set bonus pre-raid that comes anywhere close to how strong this is. Hunters would really only replace this with probably 4 set Tier 5, and even then they probably wouldn't gain that much. Calculations need to be done, but it is a huge bonus for any hunter. But it's not just that. Hunters by default do pretty good damage. And this was also the case on retail. It just took people some time to figure that out. But once hunters figured it out, once guilds had properly transitioned from vanilla to Burning Crusade, once the world first race was over with Illidan, people really did start figuring how things actually stood in terms of damage numbers. And hunters ended up being in a very strong position, especially when you look at Sunwell Plateau. Hunters did quite well, even on retail. And now, years down the line, people have realized just how powerful hunters are from the start until the very end of the Burning Crusade. Not on every boss, of course, but from the vast majority of encounters, hunters will pretty much beat anyone. But rogues don't just end up losing against hunters, they end up losing against a whole bunch of people. Depends on the boss, depends on the mechanics, but for the most part, rogues are subpar DPS compared to most people. And I'm talking here about well-geared rogues, people that know what they're doing, are min-maxing, trying to push the DPS, trying to do very well. They still end up losing. And that's because rogues have significant disadvantages when you're looking at the Burning Crusade. It starts with leveling. When you're looking at leveling, what people have figured out in Classic is that speed leveling for dungeons is really the way to go. Now, for Burning Crusade, you could say, well, there's enough quests in the world. Sure. There's plenty of quests in Outland. You can level for questing just fine. You really won't be able to at the launch of Burning Crusade Classic because there will simply be too many people, regardless of how many layers Blizzard implements and whatever respawn rate they use. It's going to be a hellish experience to actually do the quests. Too much competition. And that's not even considering the PvP aspect about it, the fights between the Horde and Alliance that will be taking place in Hellfire Peninsula, in Zangar Marsh, and hell, Terakar itself. So there is going to be huge competition between Horde and Alliance. So what that means is, if you want to level quickly, you're going to do dungeons. And rogues are not great for cleave groups. In fact, they're probably some of the worst DPSers for that. And other DPSers that are also not great for cleave groups, they can always respec. Go heal, go tank as, say, a Rep Paladin. You're not great for a cleave group, so go tank. No problem. Issue solved. You don't really have that option as a rogue. And that's just leveling. But in the same vein, for the same reasons why rogues aren't really great for leveling groups in dungeons, they're not really great for normal groups at level 70, for normal dungeon groups at level 70. where people will want to do the normal dungeons over and over and over again for the sake of reputation, for the sake of revered or exalted, for the items that they want from normal dungeons. Rogues are not great for that either. And then heroics. In heroics, the situation gets a lot worse, because in heroics, there's many mobs, many bosses, in dungeon after dungeon that just screw over melee in general. Now, if you're a warrior, if you're a paladin, if you're a druid, you have other options. Enhancement Shamans are probably the only ones that can reliably get away with being a melee in a heroic dungeon without screwing over their group. And that's because they're still shamans, they still have bloodlust, they still have totems, and they have really a high burst DPS as Enhancement Shamans. So they kind of can get away with it, but they also have their own issues with it. So if shamans have some issues, rogues have enormous problems. They just don't have the DPS, they really don't have the utility that other people bring to the table, and they don't have the flexibility that virtually every other class has when we're talking about melee DPS. So they suffer while leveling, 5-man normals, 5-man heroics, and then raiding. Many bosses in raiding. Karazhan, let's say it's fine, but many bosses in Tier 5 in particular, in Serpentine Caverns and in Tempest Keep, are basically a middle finger towards melee, just like the 5-man heroics are. And that's not even counting the trash in Serpentine Caverns and Tempest Keep. So boss after boss screws over melee, and you're also limited in how many melee you can bring in general, not necessarily because of the boss mechanics, though obviously those are an issue, but also because of the way raid setups work. You don't want to go with too many melee, because obviously melee want to have Wind Fury. It's a big deal for them. You need Enhancement Shamans to provide that. You can only take so many melee. Let's say 3 or 4, maybe 5. In general, 3 or 4 is what you're going to go for. 5 in some cases, maybe one more in some extreme situations, but generally those are the numbers you're looking at. Well, out of 3 or 4 melee DPSers, you're going to want to have 2 Enhancement Shamans. They're shamans, they have bloodlust, they have totems, and Enhancement Shamans do totem twisting in a way no one else can. So they're beneficial for a melee group in particular. So you're going to want one for a hunter group, you're going to want the other for the melee group, as it were. And so 2 of the melee spots are taken by shamans, or at least one of them will be. And then what? Well, you want an arms warrior. An arms warrior that's played by someone competent can do pretty good damage at the start. Basically, someone who understands that going for swordsmithing it can be a huge DPS increase. Or you can have a rep paladin, who is important because, hey, having a third paladin blessing but not bothering with more than 1 holy, 1 protection, or 1 retribution is a good idea for a raid setup. And also keeping judgments up on the boss, which help out DPS in general, but also but specifically mana users, because keeping up Judgment of Wisdom, hugely important for any caster and for hunters. They benefit from that. So you have Enhancement Shamans, you have Arms Warriors, you have Rep Paladins. And then you get into the discussion of Fury Warriors. Fury Warriors don't really have any special utility that other warriors can't provide, but they do pretty decent damage, even if they don't go for blacksmithing. And if they do go for blacksmithing and go crazy with Dragon Maw, Dragon Strike, maybe even get 2 of them if they can, if the server allows it, if Blizzard allows it, then they can do really great damage that other people just won't be able to match. But of course, they really don't have specific utility, so that's a bit of an issue. Now, warriors are a different kettle of fish, right? They have some problems, they have some benefits. But what benefits do you get by bringing a rogue? It's not the damage, it's the improved exposed armor. That's the one thing rogues bring to the table. And frankly, it's not even worth it in Tier 4 or Tier 5. Tier 6, Sunwell Plateau, absolutely, that's a different discussion. But even then, its usefulness is still limited. So rogues have limited utility in raids, don't have great damage. What's the point in bringing them when you're going to be limited in how many melee you can bring because of the raid setup, the way you want to make a raid, also because of the way the bosses are designed. Take a look at Vash. Take a look at Alar. Alar is an extreme example of a boss where you're not going to want to have any melee in general. Hell, you can do the boss without any at all. Maybe one shaman, just to have the benefits that an enhancement shaman brings you to a raid. And that's it. No more than that. And that creates huge issues, as you might imagine. Things do improve significantly in tier 6. Part of it is because the gear is very good for rogues and they start doing a lot more damage than before. Also because the boss design in itself is a lot more friendlier towards melee than anything in tier 5 is. So melee don't get screwed over as much in general. And finally, rogues do provide important utility in Mount Hyjal and Black Temple. In Mount Hyjal, you have to deal with trash waves for 4 out of 5 bosses. And that those trash waves, you'll have to do them every single time that you wipe. Now, rogues can save you a lot of time because once that you deal with the trash waves, the boss spawns, but say you're not ready, you don't have mana, people are dead, you want to get everything sorted out, rogues can buy you time. They can distract the boss, buy you time, save yourself from wiping. And that is a huge benefit that can't be understated, especially during Mount Hyjal progression. In Black Temple, they're very important as interrupters on bosses like Reliquary of Souls and Eladari Council. So they are a genuine asset for those bosses. On Eladari Council, a rogue with the Gladiator Gauntlets can pretty much interrupt all of the spells that Lady Malanda is doing. She's a priest, she'll cast a bunch of annoying spells, and a rogue can deal with that on their own unless she has physical immunity because of Blessing of Protection. Then casters need to interrupt her. Generally on Retail, you would use 2 interrupters for her, just to be safe, just to be on the safe side, 2 physical interrupters to be on the safe side. A single rogue that knows what they're doing can handle it on their own, and that is a genuine benefit. Eladari Council is probably the most annoying and maybe even the hardest boss in Black Temple. It certainly felt like that to me on Retail. Killing Illidan was a joke in comparison, especially on farm. Killing Eladari Council was something that you could struggle on because people would die in AoE. Of course, people dying in fire has been happening since the dawn of World of Warcraft, but rogues do benefit your raid on a fight like Eladari Council, where their interrupts are a huge benefit. Makes the fight easier to deal with, means you don't have to rely on 2 people to handle an interrupt job that a single person can handle, outside of the situations where she's getting Blessing of Protection. So rogues are useful in tier 6, they're useful in Mount Hyjal, they're useful in Black Temple, they do well in Sunwell Plateau, especially with Warglaives, but even without, they're not too horrible, but they're not too great either without them. The issue for rogues, however, is that most guilds are probably not going to want more than 1 or 2 in their entire raid roster, regardless of what tier we're talking about. Many guilds may not use a single rogue at all in tier 4 or tier 5, especially during progression. It doesn't really bring you a benefit. Let's not even talk about speedruns, because that's a different kettle of fish. So rogues get screwed over for a significant portion of the raiding content. They are good for the end game, for tier 6, for Sunwell Plateau, but it's not exactly a great experience to play a class that is very weak until a certain point, and then with good gear, if you're stacked with gear, actually becomes decent or good if we're talking about Warglaives. So rogues are in a pretty shitty situation. If there's anything that I've learned playing World of Warcraft throughout the years, is there's many people who are going to want to play rogues. Obviously the class is appealing to a large number of players, but the situation in Burning Crusade is not at all favorable to them. This was obviously not the case on Retail, which is why a lot of people disagree with this kind of assessment, but guess what? We're no longer in 2007 or 2008. We're a decade later. People have figured out things that people either never figured out on Retail, or they figured out very late during the expansion on Retail. In fact, most of the things that private servers use are things that people discovered very late in the Burning Crusade. When you're looking at the Sunwell Plateau raid composition, it's actually not that different than what people are aiming for. I mean, Hunters being good DPSers, Destruction Warlocks being good DPSers, Ret Paladins suddenly being able to do damage, all that kind of stuff. People figured this out on Retail very much later on, but they did. And then private servers have applied it and taken it to next level. And I personally think that things are actually going to get more extreme with Classic than they have ever been on private servers or retail. So brace yourselves. It's not going to be a fun ride if you're playing a rogue. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.